So we're looking at the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Crime Data Explorer, just looking at a trend line for crime rates over the last 10 years. So you can see on the left is our crime rate, the number of, right now I've got selected all violent crimes. So the number of violent crimes per 100,000 persons per year. So that's 432, somewhere in there, violent crimes per 100,000 people each year. And so you can see the bottom axis is the year, so 2009 to 2010, a drop, and then it drops again, and then it kind of goes up slightly, but basically stays the same, and then a drop, and then a drop, and then we've got 2 years, 2015 to 2016, that are increasing, and then we'll come back down. So in your textbook, when it talks about these periods where we have sharp decreases from, the early 1940s, there's a sharp decrease, and then in the 1960s through the 1980s, there's these really sharp increases. And then currently, we're not really in a sharp anything. We're not sharply decreasing. You can see mostly it's going down from 2009 to 2019. It is down by about 50 or so violent crimes per year, or per 100,000 people per year. So that's a decrease. What we could do is we could also look at, instead of violent crime, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 options for violent crime. So we could look at the homicide rate. And you notice it follows that same kind of trend. Now this is, you got to pay attention to the numbers on the left. This is 5.4, so it goes from 4.4 to 5.4. So this is the difference between 2014 to 2015, is half a murder per 100,000 people more than the previous year. So make sure we're paying attention to the numbers. The difference on this graph is a single murder per 100,000 people as a rate. But if we go back to all, it follows that same kind of general trend down to 2014 at the low point, and then it comes back up. Some of those, so if we let's look at rape, and then we've got a revised rape reported. I don't know if this is a definition change. They might have, I think at one point they changed the definition to make it gender neutral. That could be part of that. I'm not really sure what. I need to look more into that, why that's different. But let's move on to robbery, violent crime. Now it has that same kind of dip, but it never has that sharp increase back. It's a lower increase. You can see minimal increase for a couple of years, so it doesn't look as drastic of an increase. Aggravated assault, it's got more of that drastic increase. 2 years from 2014 at a low point, 2015, 2016 going back up, and then this one it still has a little bit of an increase. Now if we look at all property crimes, okay, so your textbook mentions that there's a pretty significant decrease of all traditional types of crime. So the types of things that are increasing, internet-based, technology-based crimes, but property crimes have been decreasing for a little bit. So this goes, again, pay attention to your numbers on your left axis, somewhere in the 3,050 range to 2,100 is, down where we are. If we break that down, you can see the number of arsons. So 20 arsons is the max on this graph. So somewhere 19.5 arsons per 100,000 people a year at 2009, all the way down to 2019, which what was it? 10.8. And we can look at each of these little index crimes. Burglary, following the general trend, down. What about larceny, theft? And the only one that's kind of weird, motor vehicle theft a little bit, kind of follows the violent crime trend of a little bit of an uptick for a couple of years before it starts going back down. Now I want to see on this graph, 2019 is the most recent data, so I could go down anywhere from 19, I think it was 86. So if we let's just look at the violent crime and look at this trend line of where it starts. So we're starting at, just keep this number in mind, 431.9 Again, so this has been, we've been decreasing. So you can see from this point it's a decrease, but the question is, where did it get? You know, so if we go to 2008, where is it? 2007, where is it? So we have that option. If we go to 2008, okay, it was at 431.9 for violent crime. Here, it's 458.6. So we learned about our increase periods. We decreased in the post World War II era. We started increasing a little bit in the 60s. We increased in the 80s. So this only goes back into 1986. So let's go all the way back to 1986. Now you can see back here when you're at 2009 and you're looking at 431.9, and this is where we started. Our decrease 450 or sorry, excuse me, 758.2, 757.7. So in 1991 at 758.2 per 100,000. So that's 758.2 violent crimes per 100,000 people in that year is as high as we've seen. So as we get back on this other side, so you go as far as 1986. We know the trends from the early 80s started going up. We got to this point here, 758.2 violent crimes per 100,000 people. And then today we're sitting here looking at that number. So when you see it in its full scale compared to where it was in the early 90s, you can see that these upticks don't look as big as they do when you're zoomed in to that graphic. Really quickly, let's take a look at property crimes. Same kind of situation. So is this 1991, 5,140.2 property crimes per 100,000 people for that year, compared to 2019 is 2,109.9. So a very significant drop. So anyway, this is data available to you on the FBI's website. You can play around with charts and graphs and other things. So if you're interested in learning more, check it out.